putting animals in one paddock with full access to the paddock, and that's there year round for them, full access the whole time, quite frankly, is a terrible idea. So let's break this down, okay? Because I'm going to guess that at least half of you are sitting there thinking, oh man, that's exactly what I was going to do. There are different ways to graze animals. There's really 3 different options: continuous grazing, rotational grazing, and strip grazing. So continuous grazing is that scenario where you've got one paddock and they have access to the whole thing all the time year round. Obviously you need less fencing. You only need one water trough, one shelter in the corner, so it's a low input option for you. The downside is that pasture is going to go to the dogs, okay? Sheep do not graze evenly, and what happens is where they poo and pee, you end up with grass and weed growth there, tasting bitter, so they'll avoid that patch of grass. So it turns to weeds, which taste bitter, they'll avoid that. You end up with a paddock that gets worse and worse with big patches in it where they will not graze, and we call it pasture sick. Big patches of really poor quality inedible weeds, and the remaining part where they do eat gets less and less over time. Your parasite loads, your gut parasites coming out in the poo are also going to end up really concentrated on that pasture. Over time, you'll completely ruin your paddocks. The only way this system works well is if you have heaps of pasture for the amount of animals, but it's a very, very poor long-term plan. What you do want to do, or what I'd highly recommend, is called rotational grazing. And this is when you have multiple paddocks, even if it's only 2. You move them out of the paddock and into the next one when the pasture length reaches that minimum length that we've talked about. It allows the grass to rest and regenerate. You can graze other species in behind them to clean up the worms as well, and then you've got control over their food intake. If they're skinny, you can graze them for shorter periods of time in each paddock, so the grass is always long. If they're overweight, you leave them in a paddock until the grass is quite short. Make them diet for a few days at the end of each rotation. Fencing costs don't have to be high. You can just use temporary fencing. You do, however, need to make sure they've got access to water and shelter in each paddock. And of course, open those gates if you need to, okay? You're not locked into keeping those little paddocks. So if you're going away on holiday, or you know that you need, a solid 6 weeks of long grass during the lambing period without disturbing the ewes, open the gates. Give everyone access to the whole thing temporarily if you need to.